half in the bag. Apes in outer space.
Oh, God. I think I'm getting seasick.
Excuse me, J-Lo, that's lake sick. We're on Lake Michigan. And from what I can tell, the current has pulled us out pretty far, too.
Oh, whatever. I hate water. That's why I don't bathe.
Ew. Well, don't worry, Jay. This water is much less scary than the ocean. Lake Michigan's deepest point is only 922 feet, which means we're much less likely to drown in water that comparatively shallow. Oh, fuck!
What's this?
It's like being on a Carnival cruise line, just much safer.
Hey, Mike. Did you know Mr. Plinkett used to be a hot air balloon pilot? Or racer? Or whatever the fuck you call it?
I did not know that, Jay. I wonder how that'll come into play later.
It's true. It's all true. My secret past as a hot air balloon pilot is finally out. All this damn water, it's flushing out things I hid in my basement years ago. Old photos, cat coffins, thousands of copies of E.T. on Atari.
I wish I was dead. Oh God, I hope the bugs eat me alive.
You know, I think my old hot air balloon is down there too, all folded up. I used to be the best hot air balloon piloteer of all time. Even wanted to branch out into dirigibles. But that career got cut short after the Hindenburg.
Mr. Plinkett, you crashed the Hindenburg?
Oh, no, I just watched. I was the guy yelling, "Oh, the humanity!" Seeing that really scarred me, though. Because of that, I gave up hot air ballooning, and because of Prohibition, I started selling bathtub gin. That's where the real money's at.
Hey, Mike, if we're stranded out on Lake Michigan, how are we going to watch and talk about movies?
I don't know, Jay. I guess we'll just have to talk about politics and religion instead.
Oh, that reminds me. Oh, God. Here, I paid $9,000 for this. Yeah, I went to buy some booze off of a bootlegger. You know, because Prohibition's still on.
Oh, yeah.
And that jerk on the street ripped me off. I don't know what anybody's supposed to do with that many drink coasters, but enjoy. I'm gonna go take a piss in Lake Michigan. Should make this water cleaner.
Jay, what is that?
It appears to be bootlegs of all the movies that are coming out over the next few months.
No kidding. Well, that's fucking convenient.
Yeah, look.
Interstellar? Oh, that's the new Christopher Nolan movie, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Well, let's watch that one first.
Okay.
I'm sure it's gonna look real good on this TV. You know, I shot it in IMAX.
But we don't have a DVD player.
Look, Jay, a DVD player has also washed up conveniently for us.
Oh, that's really convenient. Now we have a DVD player, so we can play our bootleg DVD of Interstellar on the TV.
Yeah, we can watch Christopher. Let's just talk about the movies, okay?
Okay.
Potentially habitable worlds right within our reach.
Could save us from extinction.
Here we go.
You can't just think about your family. Now you have to think bigger than that.
I am thinking about my family and millions of other families.
Maybe we've spent too long trying to figure all this out with theory. Love is the one thing that transcends time and space.
The cast of Ocean's 11 reunites in Christopher Nolan's new film, Interstellar. In Interstellar, Matthew McConaughey plays Cooper, a space pilot who is also a post-apocalyptic corn farmer. He lives on a dusty farm with his ungrateful daughter, dim-witted son, and Jonathan Lithgow. When offered a chance to go to space to get away from his family on a suicide mission, Cooper jumps at the chance. Their mission? To find a new planet for Anne Hathaway to overact on. Well, Jay, we just watched Interstellar on this this lovely television screen
Yes. We had to bend gravity in order to do so.
to see the picture. You know, they make TVs now that bend.
Oh, I've heard about this. Yeah.
I saw a 120-inch 4K television.
Oh, how much of it wraps around you? Is it like a complete
No,
360?
it was a slight bend. It was $100,000.
Okay.
120-inch, if you can imagine that size. That is a little overpriced, but still, I bet you it's real great watching reruns of Sanford and Son on. Also, Jay, what did you think of Christopher Nolan's latest film, Interspace?
Oh, I was confused because I thought this was a remake of that classic 70s porno Interstellar.
About Interstellar. Although this film is inaccurately titled, it should have been called Intergalactic, because they do travel to a different galaxy technically.
Oh,
Interstellar would mean in between stars.
okay.
But there's a Beastie Boys song called Intergalactic already.
Yeah, I was gonna say Interstellar sounds more like lofty
Heady?
and yeah. Intergalactic sounds more sci-fi, corny.
Corny is
Yes,
the key
corny is a
word,
good word for it.
But anyway, Jay, what did you think of whatever?
Interstellar, it's a very good movie. I liked it a lot. I thought it was very well made. I really hope that Christopher Nolan never decides to make a straightforward character like tearjerker drama. I'm guessing, because I did no research on this movie, I
did
really
not
don't
either.
care about Christopher Nolan. Do you know if he did any sort of research on black holes and quantum mechanics and all that stuff?
Absolutely, yeah. I saw a little, I think they did plenty of research.
I'm assuming they did.
Yeah,
It feels very detailed in that stuff.
Yes.
But do you know if he discovered in all of his research, did he discover for sure that love conquers all?
I didn't find the dramatic stuff all that terrible or
No, it's better than Gravity, which is probably the closest comparison to this movie. This is this year's Gravity, and that was
Yeah.
one where the human elements, it all came across schmaltzy to me.
Yes.
And this one, it's handled a lot better.
Yes.
But it was the weakest part of the movie for me. I was interested more in the exploration. Actually, what I was thinking, because you said that Nolan was influenced a lot by Stanley Kubrick in 2001 for this movie, right?
Yeah, very clearly.
I wish the movie, I know it's like 3 hours long, but I wish when it came to them traveling through space, the movie slowed down a bit.
Yeah.
And let you take in the visuals and made it more of you're exploring this universe with these people.
Right.
Because it's always like, oh, this is a great shot. They're tiny in the distance. They're coming up towards the wormhole, and then they just keep talking some more. And I was like, I want to take this in a little bit more.
I felt the pacing was good in that regard, because that's what I wanted from this movie. I didn't know where this was going. I knew people went into space to search for a new home for Earth, and I was like, oh, neat. You know, I want to see a real movie that is about people traveling to very far distances in space in search of an inhabitable planet.
Sure.
And I wanted to see a movie like that. The adventure, not silly sci-fi schlock adventure, but the human adventure of traveling into outer space. I wanted to see a movie like that, and the first half really was that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. You know, they're in space, and just some of the 2001-esque elements to it. You know, the spinning.
Oh, yeah.
How space travel really is.
Yeah.
How it's not like it is in Star Trek. I mean, that's fantasy. And then it starts to kind of speed up, and they're just like, oh, we're going down in this spaceship, and then like, why do they even need a rocket? Why did they even need it was like a Saturn V rocket, like Apollo astronaut rocket that took them off into space.
Yeah.
When later on in the movie they established that they have crafts that can just take off and land from planetoids.
And planets with similar atmospheres to Earth.
Yeah, with ease. It's like, well, okay, just use a little.
Yeah, I thought that was a
It was
lot.
it went from NASA to Star Trek in just the course of the movie. It became like sci-fi action a little later.
Yeah.
And so sort of like, and then Matthew McConaughey, they very loosely reference him as a pilot before. Like they show him like in some sort of test flight in his memory.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he can do all this like crazy futuristic shit. Like I'm going to pilot this ship around the rim of a black hole. Like how the fuck?
I'd be more okay with that if that was the way the movie started, but it started a lot more grounded, and I don't know if that was just a way to try and ease you into that stuff. It kind of worked, because I wasn't thinking about it too much as it was happening, but that's Christopher Nolan again. You're not really thinking about it because you're caught up in the visuals and you're caught up in the performances and the music especially. Yeah, the movie starts, there's a lot of clarity to the story for the first half of it, where it's like we start on Earth, we establish the problem, Matthew McConaughey gets caught up in the situation, and it's like, oh, we have to go in, we're going to investigate these 3 planets. We have to travel through a wormhole to get to them, and then we're going to travel to each planet and see which one has the best environment to live on. Oh, that's great. And then the second half, it gets bogged down a bit in more, I don't know, philosophical ideas and metaphorical things and love and that stuff, and that's where it lost me a bit. More than a bit, actually.
Well, I guess we should say we're going to get into spoilers now, I think.
Okay.
Just to be safe, because there's a lot going on in this movie. Lots of things happen. And yeah, we don't want to spoil it for anyone.
Sure.
Spoilers! And we'll be back after this commercial break from Totino's Pizza Rolls. Well, I agree with you, Jay. First half clearly set up the purpose of the movie. Matthew McConaughey loves his little daughter and doesn't want to let her down. And
His ungrateful little daughter.
Ungrateful little daughter. What does she want? It's a Dust Bowl.
What does she want? The love of her father?
Yeah. You don't want him to leave and go to outer space and die? Like, what, you little selfish bastard. But he loves his daughter, he loves his family, and he wants to save the planet, and he goes to space. And Michael Caine has a secret agenda of he doesn't give no fucks. He wants to send a bunch of fertilized eggs all up in Anne Hathaway's vagina for her to poop out the new civilization of America.
Is that how it happens?
That's pretty much what he wrote in that exact sentiment. But then, second half of the movie feels like 15 different movies, but it almost crosses over into this nerd kind of science level, which I think might alienate some general audience members.
Well, I think that's curbed a bit by the father-daughter stuff, the Anne Hathaway and her father stuff, the human elements of it softens that a bit.
You gotta add the human element for people to relate to, but I think that you need a sprinkling of science and an overwhelming human element for it to play with general audiences.
Yeah.
This had an overwhelming scientific element and a sprinkling of humanity in it. That's the one issue that I had, was that post-wormhole, when they go through the wormhole, I think that's cool. Yeah. The wormhole's a real thing.
The wormhole, that whole sequence was great, yeah.
And by the way, the explanation of the wormhole and how space-time works. Space-time is a fabric. It's like exactly how he explains. He takes the piece of paper, folds it in half, and pokes the hole through. Sam Neill does the exact same thing in Event Horizon.
Okay.
This attractive piece of paper represents space-time, and you want to get from point A here to point B there. Now, what's the shortest distance between 2 points?
I guess that's an easy way to explain it to an audience.
Yeah, it's hard to wrap your brain around space-time.
Yeah.
But thinking of it as a physical object like that, and you could bend it and warp it. That's how Star Trek's warp engines work. They're called a warp engine because they warp space-time.
Okay.
I'm not an expert by any means. I know a little bit about.
You're not?
I'm not. No, I'm an expert on this.
Okay.
On consuming this, but I'm not an expert on space or string theory or scientific theory or quantum physics or anything. I know a little bit about it. I know a little bit, but I'm guessing you can't fly right by a black hole in a tiny spaceship made of tin. I'm guessing you can't fly 15 feet from Saturn without dying of horrific radiation death. And there's a lot of things in the movie that started to become very like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, where like giant planetoids are exploding and people are traveling through the universe and this and that. And so I was hoping for something a little bit more grounded in reality. I know that they did a lot of the visuals and a lot of the warping of space and how the lensing effects on light and all that stuff, how that looked, and that was neat.
That was my favorite stuff in the movie.
Yeah, and the part where they go on the small planet that's under intense gravity, and then like the gigantic waves,
Yeah.
and like that's where tides come from, is the moon's gravity pulling on the water on Earth. And it's like, okay, some of that stuff, and then it starts to get a little silly.
Well, especially at the end when he's in the black hole, Matthew McConaughey's in there, and he's seeing the past and all that, and he is explaining to his robot pal the entire time exactly what he's doing, and the robot is explaining. I was thinking of, again, 2001, and like towards the end, if you had David walking around just talking to nobody, where he's like, there I am in bed as an old man, and just like over-explaining it. I almost wish that this movie did less explanation, which would have alienated an audience even more. I understand that, but I probably would have enjoyed it more, because it would have left me contemplating what was happening more than the movie does.
It's a delicate balance
Yeah.
when you make a movie like this, where you have to really, you can't take the audience for granted.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, they understand Einstein's theory of relativity. They understand that time will slow down with more gravity, or you just can't assume that. So
He does a good job of explaining just enough through most of the movie, to the point where the parts where it is over-explained or there is too much exposition stood out. The worst part of that being the sequence with Matt Damon, where he turns into a James Bond villain and explains for no reason exactly what he's doing and why when he backstabs Matthew McConaughey. That part of the movie bugged me quite a bit.
And then Anne Hathaway, I'll be honest, once Matthew McConaughey flew into a black hole and then ended up in a three-dimensional library, trying to make the second hand on a clock move with Morse code through intergalactic telekinesis, I completely forgot about Anne Hathaway.
Yes, yeah.
It's like, what? Oh! And then Grandma had to remind him. She's like, oh, you forgot about her. She went to the other planet. Oh, wouldn't she be 108 years old by now? How does this work now? Yeah. And then he takes a space fighter to go fight the Cylons.
We're getting into the very end of the movie now. No, that was weird to me too at the very end. When why does he feel the need to just suddenly steal a ship to fly to Anne Hathaway?
Love.
Because of love? Why didn't he just say, hey, I'm gonna take the ship to another planet? Why did he have to sneak in and steal it? I thought that was weird.
Don't know. Focus on one thing. Focus on making a really technical science fiction film about traveling to another planet and saving the human race. Get really detailed and how exactly that would happen if NASA was still around, and make people die horribly. Like, we got to leave you behind. We don't have enough fuel to make it to the next planet. Stuff like that. Like that, I thought was neat.
Yeah.
Like humanity's last attempt to find a suitable homeworld after the luck of finding a wormhole, and we only have X amount of fuel left before we can do this. Make a movie about that, or make a really kind of generic movie about love. Can love travel through space and our destiny and stuff like that? Mixing the two seemed a little clunky at times.
But at the same time, you don't want to get down on this too movie, because I'd rather see a movie with too many ideas than none.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
of course.
it's an ambitious movie. It's a well-made movie. Lots of good visuals, lots of good performances. I liked the robot.
It really takes you out of kind of what you'd expect.
Yeah, exactly. Because before we saw this, there was the trailer for Chappie. Is that what it was? The
Chappie.
Short Circuit remake.
Chappie, Short Circuit 3.
Yeah, and it's just like Robot Man, and then you see this, and it's a rectangle.
Yeah, yeah, a homage to the monolith.
Sure.
And HAL combined into one thing. But yeah, you're like, what is that? What?
That's a robot?
Yeah. And it's such a strange design, and then you find out later that it could do all these interesting things. And you're like, oh, okay, that's neat.
Without ever getting too silly with the things it can do.
Without ever getting too silly,
that's neat. That makes sense.
Yeah, much more interesting than the robot from the black hole.
The Black Hole. Oh yeah, that's another movie about a black hole, right?
I did some mild research before watching this, and I watched two other films related to black holes. And the first was Disney's The Black Hole, which I believe is late 70s or early 80s.
I want to say early 80s.
Early 80s, and a film called Event Horizon, starring Larry Fishburne and Sam Neill.
Sam Neill. I think that was like right after Jurassic Park. Oh man.
And it was interesting how technology in movies has advanced. Wow, the black hole. I hadn't seen it since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I barely remembered
I don't
anything
remember
about
a
it.
single thing about it.
I remember there was a red robot named Maximilian in it. Oh my God. There are some effects in it that are good.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I don't want to say great, but like classic, models and,
Oh, sure.
and that's sort of
From that era.
From that era, like, oh, okay, that works. And then some that are just atrociously bad. The green screens, especially.
Yeah.
It looked like a Turkish movie, like a Reb Brown film. Like, what is this?
Oh, wow.
People like their zero G is Ernest Borgnine on strings.
My God. Right out of Dante's Inferno.
Ernest Borgnine's in
Ernest Borgnine has wires on him, and he's going like this, and you could see the wires, and all the robots are on wires, and fast forward to Event Horizon.
Yes.
Better visual effects, or early days of CGI.
Yeah.
There's some really kind of bad-looking CGI stuff in it, but mostly models and some occasionally bad green screens. But then jump to this.
So has it been tradition up until this point that all movies about black holes have to suck?
Yeah, the black hole is amazingly bad.
Would you recommend the black hole? As like a cultural artifact?
Oh, it has one of the worst scores in the history of the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's extremely repetitive. It goes. It kind of sounds like the theme to Mad Men.
We must think not as individuals, but as a species. We must confront the reality of interstellar travel.
Murph, I love you.
I didn't really like the cutting to the crop burning. It didn't seem to have, like, I get what they were doing, but it didn't seem to have, like, that kind of resonance, like this is connected to this.
Yeah.
These two things, like Inception.
I found it a little distracting.
Yeah.
Whereas like
Oh,
you could show
absolutely.
both of them, but don't cut back and forth.
Yeah, Inception cutting back and forth was crucial
Oh, sure.
to how that story was happening, because it's like the van going off the bridge in slow motion is directly related to
Right.
that. But this, not so much. And I see what he was doing. He was doing his thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I want to watch this story about them trying to stop Matt Damon from blowing the airlock apart.
Yeah.
Completely uninterrupted, please.
After they, once they were in space and they were exploring, you kind of forgot about Earth for a little while. The first time they cut back to Earth, after that, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I was like, I almost don't want to go back
Right.
there.
Yes, I felt the same way, because
Yeah.
they showed the daughter grown up, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, okay. Now we're going to watch Michael Caine. We're going to watch all the people at the dusty farmhouses.
We're going to watch Michael Caine not age after 25 years.
And I liked too the. Very rarely did they cut to the ship kind of flying around like Star Trek or Star Wars style.
Yeah.
A lot of the shots were like camera mounted on the
Yeah,
the
I like
ship,
that a lot.
which gives you that kind of that NASA we're in space feeling, because there's no cinematic shots in NASA. It's all like, here's the camera, it's mounted here. That's all we got.
Yeah.
And then that's how you see space. That's what we got. That's what we're giving you.
Yeah.
And that in a film sense translates to actual space exploration as opposed to film
Right.
as opposed to movie stuff.
Yeah.
And I liked that. I wish they would have stuck with it the whole time, but a couple of things here and there didn't. But
3,
One thing becomes really clear,
2,
and that is that you want to make sure your children feel safe.
1.
I'm coming back.
I think general audiences will like this because most of it works in a. If you can watch it as just like a space adventure thing.
no. See, I think general audiences crave that the wisecracking sidekick, and they crave Sandra Bullock schmaltz. I think a lot of science nerds will like this.
Sure.
You know, and I think a lot of general audience will say this was too long and got too weird.
Okay.
I think they'll respond to the ending by saying it got too weird. I didn't understand what was going on. I understood what was going on for a while, and then I didn't, and
Right.
it got weird.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will say that. Unfortunately, the science was more fascinating to me. Like I liked seeing some strange black hole somewhere.
Yeah.
I like the exotic science elements of it, as opposed to Sandra Bullock using a fire extinguisher to propel herself. Fuck you. It was Sandra Bullock can't accurately trajectorize herself towards a space station with a fucking fire extinguisher. She can't. She could drive a bus over a bridge, but she can't do that with a fire extinguisher. She can do something else with a fire extinguisher for all I care, and that's put out a kitchen fire. And George Clooney would never go to space. He's too much of a big pussy.
All the other Ocean's 11 guys were there.
Come on, Matt Damon was trying to do a heist on that alien planet. Where were you?
Casey Affleck showed up in this movie wearing a Ben Affleck costume. Mm-hmm. He had that beard. He looked just like his brother.
He's trying.
Yeah.
It's like, I could be Batman too. Give me a chance, coach. Put me in. I kept waiting for Jonathan Lithgow to contact his home planet. Why? Come on, why? Can we not cast Jonathan Lithgow in anything remotely serious?
He was really good on Dexter. I didn't mention that when we talked about the first Planet of the Apes
Dexter
movie.
blows. Listen, I seen a movie where Jonathan Lithgow played a father with Alzheimer's, I think. I don't know what movie it was.
That's Planet of the Apes. He had Alzheimer's.
Oh yeah, that's it. And it was comical. I think we discussed this on our show, Best of the Worst.
Yes. No, half in the bag. What's best of the worst?
I don't know.
Oh.
And Topher Grace showed up to say lines.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
scene in the car when he's like asking her questions, it felt like they flew him in and dropped him in the car and he just started saying lines.
He's like, what am I saying?
Yeah, what is this? Is this a tornado movie?
Yeah, if people are complaining about Anne Hathaway being miscast, I fine in the role, but I would say Topher Grace was not.
Yeah,
cast.
and Anne Hathaway, given that speech that she had to make about how it's possible love is stronger than like the space-time continuum.
That could have been so much worse.
That could have been so much worse,
Yeah.
but she delivered that to where I was like, oh, she kind of sold me on that.
Yeah.
Maybe love is some kind of mysterious force that exists in the universe that we just don't understand yet.
Murph, I love you forever.
Well, Jay, would you recommend intergalactic planetary intergalactic?
I would. It kind of feels like two different movies, but they're both well made and they're both interesting in their own right.
Well said, concise, and to the point. I would also recommend the new Christopher Nolan movie, Interstellar. Lots of movie.
Yeah.
Lots of goodness.
Yeah. Even if it doesn't all quite gel, it's still it's ambitious, and that's to be commended with some of the other things that are coming out this time of year.
So if you go, prepare yourself for an intergalactic trip through the stars.
we'll find a way. We always have.
So, Jay, do you think Interstellar will sink or swim with audiences?
Well, Mike, it's funny you should say that, because we're sinking!
Oh my God! Water flew in my